Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail. I encourage everyone to read it in full. The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. The men and women of law enforcement who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are heroes. They are patriots and they are the very best of us. They did not just defend a building or the people sheltering in it. They put their lives on the line to defend who we are as a country and as a people. They defended the very institutions and principles that define the United States. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment, and our investigation of other individuals continues. In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens. In the meantime, I must emphasize that the indictment is only an allegation and that the defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. I would like to thank the members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation who are working on this investigation with my office, as well as the many career prosecutors and law enforcement agents from around the country who have worked on previous January 6th investigations. These women and men are public servants of the very highest order, and it is a privilege to work alongside them. Thank you.
Hey, it's Andrea here with a quick rundown on the third Trump indictment. There's a lot to get through. I do want to just put out a quick reminder that this Saturday, August 5th, at Caveat in New York City, I will be doing my first in-person event since before the pandemic, so I'm a bit nervous, bit excited to be out and about and meeting with whoever the hell bothers to show up. And that's going to be at Caveat in Lower East Side. I hope that you guys can join. I'd love to meet some of our listeners. And I'll be in conversation with comedian Kevin Allison of the Risk Storytelling podcast and a founding member of The State, the iconic comedy group that's about to go back out on tour. And we're going to be talking about the making of the Gaslit Nation graphic novel, Dictatorship, It's Easier Than You Think, and the power of storytelling and why our voices are needed now more than ever. If you want to join us for that, either in person or in live stream, look out for the link in the description of this mini podcast, this mini episode. And again, that's Saturday, August 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern at Caveat, a wonderful podcast bar / restaurant. There's like food there. And that's in the Lower East Side. Join in person or by live stream and come say hi. All right, come say hi. So yes, indictment time, the third indictment, and what I think is the most promising indictment. So let's go into that. But first, I want to give a quick update on the other two indictments. What happened to them? What's the latest there? So the first indictment against Trump was brought by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg for falsifying records and election law violations in the case involving hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels. That trial starts in March 2024. The second indictment was brought by special counsel Jack Smith against Trump for illegally keeping, meaning stealing, classified documents and keeping them, like rat packing them, at the Viper's Den of enemy spies known as Mar-a-Lago. Those highly classified documents included super sensitive state secrets on our nuclear programs, nuclear secrets that Trump's pals in Russia and Saudi Arabia would love to get their hands on. That case goes to trial May 2024 and is overseen in Florida by a Trump lackey who was randomly assigned, and that's Eileen Cannon. And so far, she's already shown that she's trying to pay her boss back. She's doing favors for him, like delaying the trial to May. So as appalling as those charges are, how dangerous what he did was so dangerous against our national security, I don't have a lot of faith there that we're going to see justice there. But that brings us now to Trump's third indictment. Trump's third indictment was brought by special counsel Jack Smith against Trump for trying to overthrow our democracy and install himself as dictator. Trump faces even more indictments in the weeks ahead. There's the criminal investigation of election interference brought by District Attorney Fani Willis of Fulton County, Georgia. And New York Attorney General Tish James brought a lawsuit accusing the Trump Organization of fraud in a tax and loan scheme. Yet the Trump train continues to chug along, crushing the competition in the Republican primary. And the most latest polls show Biden and Trump tied in a general election. So I know what you're thinking. I'm thinking it too. How is a career criminal traitor even allowed to run for office, any office? Obviously, Trump should never have been allowed to become president in the first place. We take names on who's at fault there, who got us into this position, leading to the loss of Roe v. Wade. If you want to, hear the names, who's responsible for Trump, getting us Trump, just listen to the first 3 episodes of Gaslit Nation that examined the 2016 election as a crime scene. Now, in the upcoming trial for this third indictment, Trump going to prison depends on how well prosecutors can make the case of his clear intent. Well, conveniently for them, Gaslit Nation did an episode in the days following Trump's coup on January 6th called Clear Intent. It's all there. Just play it in the courthouse on loudspeakers. Now let's do a rundown of this 45-page indictment for the 45th president. Legal analysts have pointed out that special prosecutor Jack Smith clearly wants to go to trial quickly, as indicated by not naming any of the other 6 co-conspirators, presenting the charges simply as the United States versus Donald J. Trump. Inciting violence has been left out of the charges, likely to avoid a First Amendment defense. The indictment doesn't charge for seditious conspiracy and inciting violence, but taking advantage of the violence. There's likely a race against the clock to avoid holding the trial too close to the election, as that could be seen by some of the hand-wringers as trying to influence an election. This underscores that Merrick Garland wasted an entire year. Then that was according to reporting by the Washington Post. Merrick Garland could have investigated Trump for these very charges sooner. Now we're racing against the clock. And of course, Trump's team is going to try to delay, like Nixon did, like they successfully did in Florida. But it must be said, as is typical in going after a mafia boss, prosecutors started by going after the foot soldiers first, then the far-right militia leaders, the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and now they're going for the king, the wannabe king, and they have apparently the best judge for this case. That is, of course, as long as mafia tactics like threats and violence don't disrupt the trial and intimidate members of the jury or the judge and her family. We are in extremely tense and dangerous times. Still, according to the indictment and what we already watched play out at the time, Trump was trying to incite riots across the country so that he and his team of traitors could use the Insurrection Act to bring in the military. We were already very aware of this going on. They were trying to seed this, normalize this. Tom Cotton straight up had a New York Times opinion piece advocating for such a thing called Send in the Troops. But thankfully, Trump's third indictment has been assigned to Judge Tanya Chutkan of the District Court for the District of Columbia. She is known for her tough rulings against January 6 insurrectionists, and will not be lost on Trump that Judge Chutkan happens to be a black woman appointed by President Obama. Trump famously attacked the judge in the Trump University fraud case, calling his Mexican heritage a conflict of interest. In regards to a previous case, Judge Chutkan already informed Trump when he tried to invoke executive privilege to avoid having to turn over communications to the January 6th committee in their investigation that, quote, presidents are not kings. She is likely to remind him of this yet again in the upcoming trial. And again, she was randomly assigned to this. This isn't any sort of left-wing conspiracy. The jury, this is the best part, the jury will be selected from Washington, D.C., which is ranked as one of the most educated and most diverse places in the country. So the Grand Dragon of the KKK is going to face a black woman judge and likely a diverse jury. That itself is historic. The charges in this indictment build on the bipartisan January 6th committee's investigations carried out as Merrick Garland sat on his hands. Those congressional hearings were must-watch TV with high ratings for damning witness testimony, stunning viral videos of the horrific violence on January 6th. The polling during those hearings showed that Americans across party lines, including an extremely high number of independents, believed that Trump acted unethically. So will Trump's January 6th trial be televised? Cameras are, of course, not allowed in federal courtrooms, but exceptions can be made, including here, when there's intense public interest. An exception was made in the George Floyd case for that reason. So yes, we should demand that Trump's trial be televised because it's going to reach the people, the independent voters, that will swing the election one way or another. So none of these indictments or charges would bar Trump from running for office. That's not the DOJ's fault. That's the Constitution. The Constitution does not require a clean criminal record when it comes to running for president. So yeah, it's still going to come down to us, the American people, not Jack Smith, not the DOJ, not Judge Chutkan. Like, it's going to come down to us stopping him if it's going to be a Biden-Trump matchup. That's the big reveal here. So as exciting as a third indictment is, because this one does seem like the strongest, and the judge is going to be such a perfect judge for this case and a historic trial, it's still down to us, guys. And our little get out the vote events, yeah, that's what's going to save democracy in our country here. In 90% of these federal cases, the defendant usually strikes a deal. Will Jack Smith make a deal with Trump, allowing him to avoid prison time? Given how quickly Jack Smith seems to be wanting to head to trial, that doesn't seem likely, but we've played this game of football before with Lucy and Charlie Brown, so let's see. So far, over 1,000 people have gone to jail for January 6th. So far, over 1,000 people have been charged for January 6th, and Special Counsel Jack Smith said, quote, "Our investigation of other individuals continues." Does that include members of Congress who, like Trump, as this latest indictment spells out, took advantage of the violence on January 6th to try to overthrow our democracy? Trump's third indictment would also then apply to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs, Mo Brooks, Tommy Tuberville, Josh Hawley, and the rest of that sedition caucus. A lot can still happen between now and November 2024. As we saw in Israel, indicted criminal Netanyahu came back to power while facing multiple trials for corruption and is currently destroying the independence of Israel's courts. Can that happen here in 2024? Can Trump become president again? Yes, here's how. In Netanyahu's case, the opposition that defeated him, removing him from office, fell apart. That's what allowed Netanyahu to make a comeback. That's very important to emphasize here. The opposition, the coalition, keeping him out of power, fell apart. That's also what helped bring Trump to power in the first place in 2016. You had the Russian hackers stealing all those emails, those documents from the DNC, a cyber Watergate, and the Kremlin cutout WikiLeaks strategically releasing those emails to inflict ultimate damage in dividing and conquering the Democrats. And the media at the time breathlessly took this hook, line, and sinker, reporting on it constantly. Like it was like high school cafeteria gossip. And then, of course, beating on about Hillary's emails and so on. All the quaint stuff of back in the day, sort of quaintness. There's always also a risk of a viable third-party candidate. RFK Jr., a Steve Bannon project, who parrots Kremlin talking points, he's clearly running to try to be that third-party upset guy that siphons votes away. And all these things matter, like the fragility of the opposition, the coalitions that we need in order to keep Trump out of power, the third-party candidate upset. Those matter because Trump barely lost key states needed to win Electoral College in 2020. And then, of course, we still have his deep-pocketed donor, Louis DeJoy, running the United States Postal Service, put in place by Trump with the hopes that DeJoy could mess up the mail enough, slow it down, so that ballots wouldn't be received in time to count. And for whatever inexplicable reason, DeJoy is still in power, and the people that Biden has appointed haven't done their public service of removing him. So more pressure needs to be put there because people increasingly are voting by mail. So yeah, that's what's working against us here. The good news is that we worked our tails off in the 2022 midterms to ensure that really good public servants were elected in key positions to oversee the integrity of our elections in the must-win swing states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona. So no Trump insurrectionist won a major state race overseeing elections in swing states. That's because of us. That's because of us. That's because of our hard work. The big headline here, celebrate the third Trump indictment. I certainly did. But I hate to break it to you because we cannot put all our eggs in the Jack Smith basket. As promising as this indictment and the judge may be in finally delivering some justice, protecting our democracy in 2024 comes back down to us. Once again, I'm not saying that's fair. That's how it should be. That's just the reality. And that is why we have the show to help us get through what's going to be a long year where anything can happen. It's still early days. This show started to get us through the 2018 midterms, and we've joined together election after election, and we're going to do that once again because grassroots power is the most reliable power we have left. As promising as super hot Jack Smith's indictment may be, it comes down to us, the American people. And that's how we're going to rebuild our democracy so that my kids do not have to deal with these assholes when they come of age to vote. I hope to God that my children are flying around in trash-powered clean energy vehicles, breathing clean air and clean water, and looking back on us as the generation that defeated fascism, putting in place reforms that will never allow a Donald Trump to get this close again. That's the goal, and we can get there. And as a celebration of how far we've come, here is audio of the swearing-in ceremony of Wisconsin Judge Janet Protasiewicz to the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, giving liberals a majority there for the first time since 2008, where they can now overturn, hopefully, the abortion restrictions in Wisconsin and protect the integrity of the vote in 2024. That's what grassroots power has accomplished. So that's the big headline of the third Trump indictment. It's on us. It's always been on us to save our democracy, and we're going to do it together.